Late night crew. Um, Good evening. Hey, how's it going? Happy Thanksgiving. It is Thanksgiving. But as I am getting ready for my Thanksgiving, I figured I'd do one thing before I scurry off to bed. Excuse me for that. I heard that old Jed is looking for me. So I said, you know what? Hey, Jed, let's just set up the one on one. We don't need no chat. Nothing. Just me talking to you. Hold on a second. Late night crew was happening. Great to see everybody. Hey, Jed, I know you expected me to be playing cops and robbers with you. You see, my voice ain't even ready, Jed. Bro, I know it's hard for you to understand what family life is like because just be you and your mama. But I got obligations and stuff, and I'm trying to have a great time and everything. And I know you relish the opportunity to try to hurt me as much as you think is physically possible. And this is all behind the fact of I just tell the truth about what you be doing, how you be and what you be on. But the Lord will prepare a table in front of thy enemy, right? Right. So I don't really have a lot to say, but I do want to share something. Oh yeah, I want to share something. Yeah, me and you, we gonna chill for a minute. Yeah, but don't rush. What are we rushing for? Hit that like button. It's Thanksgiving, so I don't want you to leave. You can stay even if you hit the like button. I'm not gonna tell you to get out today because it is Thanksgiving. Jed, I need you to understand a couple of things. You don't understand what's going on in the YouTube shit. You just don't. And you don't understand what's going on in your Rico case. Your post that was illegal. You can't do stuff like that, but that's okay, whatever, you got it. But look, I found it weird that you edited it, especially when you was just showing the motion. You do know that like the lawsuit fee's been paid for, and that's public record, so you can look that up. You know we was talking about the Marshall motion, right? Now, ask yourself, Jed, why would I say I don't have enough money when it comes to the Marshalls? The Marshalls aren't free. And it's 50 of y'all. Now, I understand that you don't really get simple math, so I don't have really much to say. But I do want to listen to something together. Kickback. It shouldn't take long. Or should it?
Okay, let's unpack this. We talk a lot on here about digital footprints, right? How every click, every post kind of creates this permanent record.
Usually in the context of, an old tweet coming back to haunt someone.
Exactly. Embarrassment, maybe losing a job.
Yeah.
But today, we're doing a super deep dive into something, Well, on a whole different level.
A much, much more serious level.
We're looking at a federal civil case where YouTube posts, live streams, even little community tab updates are being submitted as concrete evidence of federal crime.
And we're talking about heavy-duty federal crimes, witness tampering, retaliation, and the big one, civil RCO.
This is where digital content gets weaponized in real time in a federal lawsuit.
It really is. It's this incredible collision between these old, very serious federal statutes and the way people behave online in the 21st century.
And what's so fascinating here, and this is what our source material gets into, is the level of detail.
Oh, the meticulousness is astounding. The plaintiff's filing takes what could look like, just casual online trash talk.
Right, a boastful quote or a weirdly cropped screenshot.
And it assigns these really severe legal labels to them. It's not just saying this is mean, it's saying this quote is a confession of tortious interference, or this edited image is proof of specific malice.
So this goes way beyond just, two people fighting in a lawsuit. This is about using online evidence to try and meet the incredibly high bar for federal criminal statutes in a civil context.
Precisely.
All right, so our mission today is really surgical. A listener provided us with a very detailed, structured source, a deep dive into these new allegations filed in the Hall v. Brown case. And we're going to dissect the legal meaning of 5 and only 5 very specific social media posts that were just filed with the court.
And it's not just about what was posted. We have to understand how the filing argues the specific wording or the editing of a photo meets the legal definition for something like malice or, obstruction of justice.
So for everyone following along, the case is Dashe Lewis Hall v. Jedediah Brown. It's in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Oklahoma.
And the claims are, like I said, incredibly serious. Civil RICO, that's the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, plus civil conspiracy, stalking, and wire fraud. These aren't simple claims. They all require proving a pattern of illegal activity connected to some kind of enterprise.
Which brings us to where the case is right now. And this is so important for understanding why this new evidence matters so much. The case is technically pending service of process.
Meaning the defendants haven't even been formally served with the lawsuit yet.
Right. But the plaintiff just filed this really critical motion, a motion for an order directing service by U.S. Marshal. So why is that specific motion such a big deal? And how does all this YouTube evidence feed into it?
Well, that motion is what you call an extraordinary request. It's not standard procedure at all.
In a normal civil case, you just hire a private guy to go hand them the papers.
You hire a private process server, exactly. To ask for the U.S. Marshals, who are, an armed federal law enforcement agency, to do it, you have to meet a very high standard under the federal rules.
And what is that standard?
It's for exceptional circumstances. You typically have to allege and provide some proof of, say, exceptional danger to the plaintiff or the process server. Or you have to show that the defendant has a history of evasion, making normal service basically impossible.
I see. So these 5 pieces of social media evidence we're about to look at, they're not just about the main RICO case. They are being submitted right now to prove to the judge that this situation is so hostile and so dangerous.
That federal law enforcement needs to step in just to get the lawsuit started. The argument is that the alleged digital violence has crossed a line and now poses a real physical world threat to the integrity of the judicial process itself.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly. So let's start with the narrative the filing creates. It doesn't just list these 5 posts. It argues they were all part of a direct, calculated response to something else that happened first.
Yes, and this is absolutely critical for establishing the legal element of intent. The filing points to a very specific date as the turning point, November 24, 2025.
And what happened on that day?
A judge in a separate but related case, a California case called Hall v. YouTube, issued a dismissal order.
Okay, but I'm a little confused. How does a dismissal in a California case suddenly trigger this major escalation in a totally different federal case in Oklahoma?
That's the absolute core of the plaintiff's argument about intent. The allegation is that the defendant, Brown, saw the outcome in that California case, specifically the fact that there were no sanctions or penalties against him, as a perceived green light.
A green light.
A green light to act with total impunity. The argument is that this was the moment the alleged harassment campaign went from, let's say, cautious to overtly aggressive. The belief, according to the filing, was that there were no immediate judicial consequences for his actions.
So the argument isn't just that the defendant kept doing what he was doing, it's that a specific court ruling made him feel emboldened, like he could get away with more.
Exactly. Emboldened is the perfect word. And that's critical for proving malice. It suggests a very sophisticated awareness of the legal process and a conscious decision to just ignore the risks.
Which is something you'd absolutely need to prove for these kinds of claims, like witness tampering or IPICO.
Absolutely. You have to show the actions were done because of the litigation, to punish the other party, to retaliate against them for suing, or to obstruct the case, not just, as some random commentary. And everything that followed happened fast. All of this new evidence comes from the 48-hour window right after that November 24th date.
So what were the three immediate things the filing alleges happened in those 48 hours?
It was a very focused, three-pronged attack, according to the filing. First, immediate economic retaliation. The plaintiff's ability to make a living was targeted right away.
Oh,
Second, aggressive witness intimidation, and this is the wild part, using the court documents from the Oklahoma RATO case itself.
wow.
And third, maybe the most serious from a legal standpoint, the malicious distortion of those same judicial records to paint a false narrative to the public.
So it's a rapid escalation. You go from, say, platform-level stuff to directly attacking the integrity of the federal court's own docket.
It's a very powerful opening for their argument. It basically says to the judge, look, here is immediate proof of this defendant's contempt for court authority. He just got a favorable ruling, and his first move was this.
And that heightened intent is the whole ballgame.
It's everything. When you're trying to prove something like retaliation or witness tampering, you have to prove the defendant's state of mind. That the action was specifically designed to stop justice or punish someone for exercising their legal rights. This timeline connects the dots. The green light from the court ruling directly to the immediate escalated attacks.
Which leads us right into the first two pieces of evidence, which are all about that immediate economic retaliation, starting with what the filing calls a confession.
The cyber strikes.
Okay, so this first piece of evidence it's really striking because it's allegedly a direct admission of responsibility from the defendant himself on a public platform.
It's what lawyers dream of, really. It takes all the guesswork out of it. This comes from a live stream video posted on November 25, 2025.
The day after the green light.
The very next day. And the title of the video was All Poor Baby.
Not exactly subtle.
No. The title itself suggests a kind of mocking celebration. And crucially, the video was streamed right after the plaintiff's income streams on YouTube were suspended. So the timing is incredibly tight. The alleged action happens, and then the boast immediately follows.
The source material says the defendant, Brown, just flat out admitted to orchestrating the attacks. So let's get into the specifics. What were the exact quotes filed with the court? And how do they legally amount to a confession of something like retaliation or tortious interference?
So there are three key statements cited in the filing, and they're all very specific. They seem to show knowledge and control. The first one is, when I decided strike, you're gone in a day.
Wow. Okay, when I decided.
Yeah.
That phrasing is powerful.
It's legally potent. The filing uses this to argue it's an admission of power and execution. The defendant isn't saying I reported a violation. He's allegedly saying he controls the mechanism, the strike, and that he can unilaterally decide to terminate the plaintiff's business, and it happens almost instantly.
Now, I can hear the counter-argument already. The defense will say, look, he just reported legitimate violations of the platform's rules. That's not illegal, it's encouraged. How does the plaintiff's filing get around that? How do they prove this was illegal retaliation and not just platform enforcement?
That's where it gets technical, but it's a great question. To prove tortious interference with a business relationship, you generally need to prove four things.
Okay, let's walk through them.
First, that a valid business relationship exists. Here, that's the plaintiff's monetized YouTube channel. Easy enough. Second, that the defendant knew about that relationship. Again, obvious.
Right.
The third element is the critical one. Intentional interference that causes a breach or termination of that relationship. And the fourth is resulting damage. That quote, when I decided strike, directly targets that third element. It suggests personal agency, a specific decision-making power. It sounds less like just clicking a report button and more like having control over the system that actually enforces the removal.
And the filing includes a second quote that seems to build on that idea, framing it almost like a military campaign.
Exactly. The next quote cited is, strike, cyber strike. Yeah, this is your personal year 9.
Cyber strike. That's a very specific term.
It is. It's not a term YouTube uses. It sounds like a coordinated, intentional, almost military-style operation. It paints a picture of a calculated attack, moving it far beyond just a casual flagging of a video and into the realm of organized, intentional economic warfare. And this, of course, establishes the fourth element, the damage, the channel suspension, the loss of income.
Okay, so you have the admission of control, the framing of it as a strategic attack, but then there's a third quote, and this one seems to tie it all back to the bigger civil RICO claim.
This one is maybe the most important for the RICO aspect. The quote is, We made our money off of your dumbassness.
And why is that so critical?
Because it introduces the profit motive. It alleges that financial gain is being derived directly from the harmful act. It fundamentally shifts the narrative. This isn't just a personal fight anymore. The filing argues this, quote, is an admission that there's a profitable business model based on destroying the plaintiff's livelihood. And a profit motive is absolutely essential for proving a racketeering enterprise under ISHO.
So by admitting control over the strikes and then connecting it to making money, the filing argues this isn't just boasting. It's a confession that meets the legal standards for retaliation against someone for filing a lawsuit and also the specific intent needed for tortious interference.
It transforms bragging online into a key piece of evidence showing malice, method, and motive.
But the filing seems to argue the intent wasn't just to take down the channels. It was to cause complete financial ruin, specifically to stop the plaintiff from being able to even continue with the lawsuit. And that's where evidence 4 comes in.
Yes, evidence 4 comes just a day later on November 26, 2025. This is after the cyber strike has worked and the channels are down. The defendant posted a status update, and it was all about celebrating the plaintiff's new financial situation.
And the quote they used to detail that alleged ruin is, it's incredibly specific and kind of cruel. These YouTube streets, mighty peaceful lol. Unemployed for the holidays is crazy, bruh. Need one of Tiffany food boxes a sap.
Unemployed for the holidays. That phrase is the entire point.
Why that phrase in particular?
The filing argues this is the smoking gun for proving specific intent to cause economic ruin, and that distinction from general intent to specific intent is vital. It's one thing to want to get a video removed, it's another thing to want to make someone so destitute they can't afford food during the holidays.
So the argument is that the goal wasn't community safety or enforcing platform rules.
The stated goal, according to this quote, was to make the plaintiff unemployed. The intent wasn't just to stop the content, it was to stop the money. And why would you want to stop the money of someone who is actively suing you in federal court?
To stop them from being able to fund the litigation.
Exactly. To stop them from being able to afford lawyers, filing fees, depositions. It draws a direct line from the celebratory mocking of their poverty to a motive of obstructing justice. The court is being told the goal here was to financially cripple the plaintiff so they would have to drop this lawsuit.
How important is that for the bigger claims? It seems like just proving harm would be enough.
It's absolutely crucial. Without that specific intent, the defense could argue, okay, maybe my actions are a bit harsh, but I was just reporting rule violations. But when you explicitly celebrate the destitution, the unemployment, the need for food boxes, the filing argues that it reveals the true malicious goal.
So if the court buys this argument, the act of getting the channel taken down isn't just a tort. It becomes a predicate act in a pattern of racketeering.
That is the massive legal leap they're asking the court to make. And the fact that it all happened within 48 hours of that alleged green light ruling is used to argue that this was a premeditated, high-intent action designed specifically to target the plaintiff's status as a litigant.
Okay, so we've moved from economic warfare to now direct interference with the court process itself. This next part is, this is really where it gets into some uncharted territory.
It really is. This is about using the federal court's own public documents as a weapon.
It's a fascinating and frankly a pretty scary development. Let's start with evidence 2, which is the use of that U.S. Marshal motion we talked about at the beginning.
Right. So the act itself was simple. The defendant posted screenshots of the plaintiff's pending motion for U.S. Marshal Service on his YouTube community tab.
Now, hold on. Federal court filings are generally public records, right? So what's wrong with posting a screenshot of a public document? Why is that automatically considered intimidation?
It's all about the context of that specific motion. You have to remember why that motion was filed. It was filed under seal, or at least with sensitive information, specifically because the plaintiff was alleging fear for their safety.
Right. It's the document where the plaintiff says, I'm afraid of this person, and here's why.
Exactly. It contains all the plaintiff's direct allegations about why they feel threatened, why they believe the defendant is dangerous and evasive, and why they need the protection of the state. It is, by its nature, a document detailing vulnerability.
So when the defendant gets a copy of that and blasts it out to all his followers,
the alleged intimidation tactic is working on a few different levels. First, you're exposing the plaintiff's private safety concerns to what is presumably a hostile audience, which is a form of public shaming, but more importantly, from a legal perspective.
What's the message it sends?
The message it sends is, I am not scared of federal law enforcement. It broadcasts a message that the defendant is not deterred by the very system the plaintiff is turning to for protection.
So how does that meet the legal definition of witness intimidation?
The filing argues that by publicly mocking a request for martial protection, the defendant is signaling to the plaintiff that he doesn't respect the court's authority, and that even the court's protective measures can and will be used as more fuel for the harassment campaign. The goal is to frighten the plaintiff into dropping the lawsuit.
Which is pretty much the textbook definition of witness tampering.
Interfering with a party's ability to participate in the judicial process through fear or coercion, it's an assertion of power that says, your attempts to find safety will only make this worse for you because I will turn it into content.
But it didn't even stop there. The mockery was one thing, but the filing goes on to allege that the document itself was manipulated. And this brings us to evidence 3, the malicious distortion.
This is where it gets really sophisticated. It's not just about posting, it's about editing. The source alleges the defendant selectively cropped the screenshot of the martial motion before he posted it.
Okay, so walk us through it. What was cut out and what was left in?
What was hidden, what was cropped out, was the entire justification for the motion. All the sections detailing the exceptional circumstances, which included the plaintiff's specific allegations of danger, a history of alleged violence, and the defendant's pattern of evading service. The core of the document was removed.
And what was left? What was isolated for the audience to see?
Only the procedural language about the plaintiff's informa pauperis status, the IFP status.
Which is the part where the plaintiff demonstrates financial hardship to the court to get their filing fees waived.
Exactly. So you crop out all the context about physical danger and safety, and you leave in only the part about the plaintiff being poor. You completely flip the narrative.
From a plea for protection to something about their finances.
And then you add the caption. This is the fabrication part. The isolated cropped image was captioned with this very loaded language. So first you perjured yourself, LOL, #chess, and we will definitely see how the courts feel about that.
Wow. So by hiding the safety context and only showing the financial part, the defendant allegedly creates this completely false narrative that the plaintiff lied to the court about being poor. He actually uses the word perjured.
And that is the absolute key to establishing legal malice. Malice, when you're talking about defamation or these kinds of intentional torts, means you either knew a statement was false or you acted with reckless disregard for whether it was true or not.
And here, the argument is he knew it was false because he had the full document. He saw the real reason for the motion.
Precisely. The filing argues he took an official court document, knew the full context was about safety, and then intentionally stripped that context away to manufacture a lie, the lie being that the plaintiff committed perjury about their finances.
I have to challenge this a bit. Couldn't the defense just say this is protected speech? That he's just offering his opinion or commentary on a public court filing?
And that is the legal battleground. But the plaintiff's filing gets ahead of that argument. It says this is not an opinion. The word perjured is an assertion of a criminal fact about the plaintiff's conduct. More than that, the deliberate act of editing the document, of physically cropping it to create a false impression, is presented as proof of the specific intent to defame and to tamper with the process.
So the argument is he used the court's own records to try and destroy the plaintiff's credibility with the court and the public.
It's a direct attack on the integrity of the judicial system itself, and that strengthens the witness tampering claim immensely. If the court sees it this way, it's a powerful picture, not just harassment, but a calculated attempt to corrupt the judicial process by distorting its own records for intimidation and for personal gain.
Okay, so we've laid out the pattern. You have the alleged economic retaliation, the witness intimidation, the distortion of court documents. But for the RSCO statute, that's not enough. You have to answer the big question.
Wow.
Why? What's the enterprise? What's the incentive?
Exactly. If a defendant is risking a massive federal lawsuit, the reward has to be pretty significant. And the filing connects all of these dots with evidence 5, which is the monetization of harassment.
So this is where we get to the core of the civil ICO claim.
This is the core. RACO demands you prove a pattern of illegal activity that's connected to an ongoing enterprise, which usually has a financial motive. The goal of this section of the filing is to establish that the defendant's YouTube channel isn't just a platform for the harassment, it is the enterprise.
The commercial enterprise.
That's the argument. The source confirms what you'd expect. All 5 of these acts we've discussed, the cyberstrike confession, the mocking of unemployment, the distortion of the martial motion, all of it was published on the defendant's monetized YouTube channel.
Meaning every single alleged act of intimidation and retaliation was also generating revenue.
Every single one. Ad revenue, super chats, channel memberships. The harassment itself is the product.
Now, how difficult is it, legally, to convince a judge that a YouTube channel is a racketeering enterprise. I mean, that term is usually for, the mafia or a massive fraudulent corporation.
It's a high hurdle for sure, but it's not insurmountable if you can map it out correctly. The filing has to argue that the channel, run by the defendants, meets the legal definition of an enterprise because it acts as a continuous unified entity for the purpose of carrying out these illegal acts.
And the illegal acts, the predicate offenses for RICO would be what?
They would be things like wire fraud, using the internet to perpetrate a scheme to harm someone, and witness tampering, which covers all the intimidation and retaliation we've been talking about.
So let's talk about that revenue cycle. How does the filing argue that money flows directly from these alleged crimes?
The cycle is the whole key to the argument. It goes like this. The lawsuit itself creates high-stakes drama. That drama drives audience engagement views, comments, shares.
And engagement drives revenue?
Exactly. The filing argues that the more aggressive the defendant is, the more sensational the content becomes. Like mocking a federal motion or accusing the plaintiff of perjury, the higher the engagement, and therefore the higher the profit. The defendant, it alleges, has a direct financial incentive to escalate the conflict and to disobey court rules, because high conflict content is profitable content.
So the harassment isn't just a byproduct of the conflict.
The harassment is the business model.
That is a critical distinction for a judge. If the enterprise, the YouTube channel, is sustained by criminal activity, and that activity is the primary source of its revenue, then you're starting to check off all the major boxes for a civil ICO claim.
You are. The acts of tampering and retaliation aren't just random, isolated events. The filing presents them as systemic acts that are essential to keeping the commercial enterprise going. By showing the defendant profits from this pattern of unlawful acts targeting the plaintiff, the filing provides the motive, the continuity, and the injury that RICO requires. The pattern keeps repeating because it pays.
It presents this very clear, very modern mechanism where the plaintiff's attempt to seek justice is directly monetized by the defendant's alleged efforts to obstruct that same justice.
It's a feedback loop of harassment and profit.
Okay, so let's pull all 5 of these pieces of evidence together now. You have the alleged confession, the celebration of economic ruin, the intimidation using court documents, the distortion of those documents, and now the clear profit motive. What's the final consolidated argument that's being presented to the judge in Oklahoma right now? What is the ultimate ask?
The ultimate ask is for that U.S. Marshal Service, and the core argument is very focused. It's that the defendant's very recent, well-documented conduct proves that standard procedure isn't going to work. It shows that any judicial leniency or reliance on the normal rules of civil procedure is not only ineffective, but it's actively being exploited for content and profit.
So the argument is that the defendant has already weaponized the court's own docket, turned the plaintiff's safety concerns into monetized content, and tried to intimidate the plaintiff, all within 2 days of getting what he saw as a green light.
And because of that, the practical implication is that sending a private process server to his door is now both potentially dangerous for that server.
And also likely to be pointless, because the defendant has allegedly shown he's willing to evade and mock the system.
Precisely. The evidence of direct retaliation and the public mockery of the plaintiff's safety concerns makes a higher level of intervention necessary. So the request to the judge is clear. This situation now requires the direct intervention of the U.S. Marshal Service, not just to protect the plaintiff, but to ensure that the court's own authority is respected and that service can even be carried out.
This is really a perfect, almost a textbook example of how a dry court record can be brought to life in almost real time by social media content. The court is being forced to deal with digital evidence that's barely a few days old, but is directly tied to some of the most serious allegations you can make in civil court.
And a whole new frontier for litigation.
So we just did a really super deep dive here into how these, seemingly small online actions, a specific quote, the way a screenshot is cropped, a status update, are being gathered up, categorized, and presented to a federal court under these incredibly serious legal banners like witness intimidation and civil RICO.
And I think what really stands out and what you should take away from this is the almost mechanical precision and the speed of it all. This case is a perfect example of the pressure that courts are under as they try to apply these old traditional statutes.
Yeah, like RICO, which was literally designed to take down the mafia.
Exactly. Applying laws like that, or laws against witness tampering, to this very modern, monetized digital behavior. The internet gives you the scale, the financial incentive, and the instant visibility to build what looks like a RICO enterprise out of 20 years ago, might have just been seen as a nasty harassment campaign.
It's almost a roadmap for how a regular civil lawsuit can escalate into a federal racketeering claim when you add money and a documented pattern of illegal acts, all of which are timestamped and preserved forever in live streams and community posts.
And it shows that digital evidence, if you structure the argument correctly, can be even more powerful and easier to authenticate than older kinds of evidence. There's no he said, she said when you have the video.
This all raises a much bigger question, though, that goes way beyond just this one case, Hall v. Brown. If creating content about a lawsuit you're involved in becomes evidence in that federal case, what are the long-term consequences for, freedom of speech for people in litigation, especially when the lawsuit itself becomes the main source of their revenue?
That is the central tension here. If hostility and harassment are profitable and that hostility explicitly targets a litigant's safety and their ability to even be in court, what is the judiciary's ultimate responsibility to step in and stop the monetization of what could be obstruction of justice?
That's a profound thought. The line between just reporting on the case you're in and actively weaponizing that case for profit has never been thinner. The courts are now being asked to draw that line with a very sharp knife of federal law, something for you to mull over.
So like I said, I don't have much to say. I'm about to go enjoy my Thanksgiving with my family. Happy Thanksgiving to the whole Real Late Night crew. Jeb, you have the right to remain silent because anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. You don't understand what's going on yet, do you? You just don't get it.